Wildest Prison Stories, Episode 5. So the first clip you're going to see is he's going to speak on the relationship between the older inmate and the younger inmate and them not knowing that they were actually related. Then after that, someone is going to speak on does rape actually happens in prison, because a lot of people wants to know that. And the last clip is going to be someone basically sending a message out there for females who have boyfriends and husbands in prison.
When people ask me what's the craziest thing I've seen in prison or circumstance or situation that I was around in prison, there's a few stories, but I tell this one because it doesn't necessarily include violence. And it shows you how twisted prison can be and why you should never want to go to a place like that. It's basically what happened, and of course I'll change names, etc., out of respect for anybody. You know what I'm saying? But I find it important to educate in this moment why you shouldn't go to prison, right? So, to put it in short, young man had came up there to Sussex too. By this time, I had been down a few years, and I could tell when he came into the dorm, he had not been locked up anywhere, probably but the jail. He didn't know what was going on. He was green. And if I could see that, other guys could see that. And what happens in an environment, a couple things. Sometimes you get left alone, where I was at. Sometimes the gang members are going to approach you to see, what you down with, what you rep, if they see tattoos, etc. And then sometimes the old heads that's into certain things, and not just the old heads, it could be anybody that's into certain things, they going to approach you and try to manipulate you so they can get you in their pocket and eventually get some favors from you. That's what happens. People don't talk about this stuff. And again, it doesn't happen for everybody, different systems, different situations, but I'm just saying this is what was happening in this moment to this young man. Because while he sat his bag down and came back out of his cell just to see what was going on in the environment, asked the CO some questions because obviously he had never been here before. One of the old heads that was into no good, was known to have several relationships and even been known to do some pimping and pandering back there. Believe it or not, because that's something crazy that happens in the system sometimes. He approached this young man, and it was like clockwork. Not even 30 minutes later, I seen this young man, and so did everybody else, because the dorms was so big, with soups in his hand. He was smoking roll up in the corner. That's tobacco. Now the problem is this: he has never went to commissary, so that means somebody had given him this stuff, and who had given him this stuff was the older gentleman that was down on him for reasons he probably didn't know about. Well, over time, it went from the young man having a couple of soups to eat every night and being happy about it and thinking he met a new friend, to sitting down and making meals with the older gentleman. Eventually, over time, they would move in to the cell together. It happens in prison, y'all. Again, everybody doesn't do the same things. I want to be clear. There's a lot of stigma when it comes to certain things. To each his own. Everybody's preference is everybody's preference. But it does happen back there. It does. And it's not uncommon to see two men move into the cell with one another, if they're in a relationship. And so this young man moved into the cell with this older guy. All this probably happened in the course of 3 weeks. Because the older gentleman, he had some influence on the compound. So it was easy for him to get some cell changes done with the COs, etc. Around this time, they had passed a rule up there where you could put your pictures of your family members and loved ones on the wall. This was a big thing. May seem so small to y'all if you've never been to prison, but to be able to put pictures of your loved ones on the wall, that is amazing. That's fire, and it's needed. You need sometimes to be able to get up, see a picture of your mom or your child or whatever, and be motivated to get through the day. So everybody was excited, and as we found out the story from one of the young man's homeboys later on, because we want to know what happened. What happened was the young man was putting his pictures up on the wall, and the older gentleman seen a picture of somebody looked familiar, and he asked the young man that he was in a relationship with, he said, "Hey, who is that?" The young man said, "Oh, that's my mother." Old head, being manipulative and all that, you know what I'm saying? I guess he was trying to get in with his mom at the same time. I don't know. But he was like, "Man, let me talk to her one time. I think I know her, you know what I'm saying, such and such." So evidently the young man said, "Cool, you might do." Da, da, da. Now I want to tell you this. The young man was about 22 years old, 23 maybe, probably closer to 21, somewhere in that range. Old had been down for 20 years. So anybody he might have known, he didn't know anymore. So there's a part of me looking at the story or hearing about the story. Maybe he genuinely didn't know who this lady was and he was just reaching out to her. Maybe he got scared and wanted to double check. So I don't know what happened. But what I do know what happened next is that the young man that he was in a relationship with put him on the phone, three-way phone call. And I remember because we were playing poker right there, and the phone that we play, or table we play poker at, is right there by the phones. Why? We can get to the phone, we can run back to the poker table. We drink our coffee, we get back to the phone. It was just our spot right there. And you're not ear hustling, but a lot of times you hear the conversations. And I remember the two walking out, and I don't mean to laugh because it's not funny, but it's so crazy. They're getting on the phone, and the young man says, "Hey, this my mama, you could talk to her." The old head gets on the phone, and probably not even, 2 minutes, 3 minutes later, you just hear him screaming. And when he starts screaming, he's looking at the young man. He says, "You're my son. You're my son. I've been messing with my son." He said a few other things. The young man started to break down, crying, sobbing. It was, I don't want to use, it was a horrible moment, right? Teach his own when it comes to preference. But this story illustrates a disconnect from society, why you should do your homework just in life with anybody you deal with, especially in any way like that. You know what I'm saying? Relationship wise, etc. And yeah, it just reveals how sick prison is, the manipulation aspect. And it's twisted because this old head who was preying on somebody, the whole time he was preying on his own son, and he didn't even know it. So yeah, that was one of the craziest things, if not the craziest thing I've seen in prison.
So as far as rape in prison is concerned, I would hear rumors from time to time about this happening or that happening, and, sometimes it turned out to be true. But my only experience with that happening is one time when I was in a cell with this guy named Reb from my county, and there was, on the bottom tier, there was a young Dominican guy that was moving in with this older black dude. And this older black guy was a little bit bigger or whatever, but I don't know, he didn't look too scary or intimidating to me. Anyway, this young Dominican kid's all happy. He's yelling to everybody on the block, and he's like happy as shit he's moving in with this dude, and Red tells me, he's like, boy, he don't know what he's in for. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, that dude spent years in the hole for raping his cellie. I was like, nah, man, nah. He's like, yeah. He's like, that kid, he has no clue what he's getting in for, because that dude is a predator.
I'm going to let a lot of you women know, you better put some of your men under investigation when they come out the joint. Because when I was in there, I only can speak for my city. Other cities, we know what they do, like playing like DC and all them places. They go hard with the boys. Now, when your homie come home, the dude you talking about you want to be with, you better make sure you put him under investigation. Because a lot of your men and the dudes you're in love with, they was going hard with boys in prison. They had a lot of fun with them, and they had a lot of fun with them. So you got to be careful and mindful. Do you want to put yourself in that situation without putting some of these guys under investigation? Because one thing about these streets in their neighborhood, they speak a lot. And a lot of guys was in a joint with each other. They know which one was in there messing with boys. So be careful, lady. Make sure you investigate your man when it come down with his sexual orientation when he was inside them prison walls. Peace out.